Let's try that again. There we go. Sorry about that. Anybody who's just tuned into the stream then, it didn't rotate properly on my phone, so I just had to restart it. Anyway, hi again. Welcome to YamYam Retro Gaming this lovely Friday afternoon. And as a lot of you already know, I'm here covering another ZX Spectrum Next game, which I've kindly been sent the demo version of from the authors, rather surprisingly, just a couple of days ago. And I'm actually going to have a second one to cover, possibly over this weekend, but I need to have a bit of a play with the game first and have a good look into it before I give my thoughts on it and share it with everybody. But anyway, today we're looking at a game called Angry Bloaters. The game is by Lampros Potamianos. I apologise if I haven't pronounced that right. I've done my best. But Lampros is the author of the fantastic Nextoid, which has already been released and packaged with the Next OS. So a lot of people who are using the Next at the moment, the development boards, you'll probably have played Nextoid and you'll have your thoughts on that. Well, the guy behind Nextoid has been working on a couple of extra titles. This one, in fact, he's been working on, and it only took a week of basic coding to be able to get it up, he tells me. He's been working on it with Phoebos Daukos, I think, who's one of the guys on the actual Next development team, who's been responsible for writing a lot of the code for the system. And yeah, so it's interesting to see that they're still, amongst all their other things, they're able to knock out some games and show you some real meat of what the system's going to do. And this isn't a game I've heard anything about or any whispers of until now. So it's really nice that Lampros contacted me and offered to send me a review version of the game so I could share it with everyone and show you what's going on. Everybody getting really, really excited for the Next now. You know, not long to go, I think, before the final production models are out. And everybody really wants to see what the system can do. And the first batch of games are looking brilliant. Now, one thing I do want to say about this game, Lampros has told me that this is likely to be a budget title. Now, the reason that that kind of threw me a bit, I had a bit of a discussion in my previous videos that about the pricing, the anticipated pricing of Next games, and the anticipated pricing of you know, whether they should be released for the same kind of value as original Spectrum titles were back in the day, whether there should be a tiered pricing thing going on. And it's got me thinking ever since. I actually said there wasn't much need to separate premium titles and budget titles, but I'm starting to kind of have come round to the idea now. And there was some discussion on another topic where someone was talking about the possibility of an app store for the Next. Now, obviously, the thing is going to be Wi-Fi compatible very soon, and there has been some discussions in the past, although it's not been covered at length online, of some kind of app-based digital download system for the computer, and I'm hoping that goes ahead because it'd be a really convenient way to grab some budget titles. And I can now see the argument really as to why people would want to produce a budget title alongside some of the premium titles we've seen, because there's a lot of games you could create for this which still look and play fantastic, but they can be coded pretty quick and it gives people something fun to play on a whim. And if you've got a digital download service for it, it's the perfect delivery method for, you know, nice cheap games. You know, we do it all the time on our Xboxes and our PlayStations, so why not do it on a new old computer, you know? So yes, this game anyway, Angry Bloaters. I'm just reading off the brief here, so you'll have to excuse me if I keep turning to the side. It's a game based on a game called Eric and the Bloaters, which was originally released, I think it was a multi-platform release back in the day, by Hudson Soft. It was available on the Spectrum. I think it was on the Amstrad 464, Commodore 64, I think. I'm not that familiar with the game myself, but you will be totally familiar with the gameplay. I certainly am. The game is basically an early version of Bomberman. Now, Bomberman, of course, has seen many, you know, original games, many ports over many systems over the years, and it's a fun game to play, you know. Okay, the real grunt of the game comes in its multiplayer mode, But, you know, going back to its roots with this, that you can see where they've actually borrowed elements back from the Bomberman games, some of the power-ups that are available and things like that. So, yeah, the game is called Angry Bloaters, as a testament to Eric and the Bloaters. And you control a guy called John, I think it is. And it's your goal to basically find the exits on each level and destroy the bloaters, which are these kind of funky, expandable bubble-type enemies which chase you around. Now, there's a few gameplay mechanics that differ slightly from what you might have seen on Bomberman, but it will instantly be recognisable as that kind of game. If you are familiar with Eric and the Bloaters, then fair play to you. It's one that I missed, and I might have to go back and check the original at some point, but... yeah, it's a nice little game, and it's very easy to pick up and play. And, well, I'll talk more about it in a second, but I've got my Spectrum Next plugged in, so let's just switch the screen. You can see I've got a few things on my desk here ready to talk about in a few upcoming videos. A few people might recognise that there. That's an FM Towns Marty, which I'll be doing in an upcoming video. My Dreamcaster I was working on the other day, and of course, the Spectrum Next. You'll also be very glad to know, if you've been following my videos, that I've sacked off that Sony, that 32-inch Sony I was using in here, that I just had lying around at home and using for demos. And I've replaced it with this piece of crap Technica 22-inch screen, which actually works out a lot better, purely because it handles 4:3 aspect properly, although I've only got it in widescreen at the moment, just so I can kind of fill the viewfinder on this. But it's not going to flick out, it's not going to cut out, and it's reacting the way it should do on the Next. Whereas the last TV I had, it kept cutting out and fading out and doing all kinds of stupid nonsense. So this should hopefully be a much better viewing experience for you. So we're just going to fire this up. I've already copied the game file over to my Next SD card, which is loaded in there. So we'll just jump into the browser and go straight down to it. The games folder on my SD card is looking more and more impressive every day, it's got to be said, because, you know, I'm being sent demos left, right and centre by people, so this directory is filling up fast. You can see I've got Adrian Cummins' games on there, I've got the ones from Rusty Pixels. It's fast growing, and I'm hoping to see some more soon. The other game I'm going to talk about another day on here is the Hollow Earth Hypothesis, which I will go into another day, but I'll do an announcement about that. But the one we're looking at today is Angry Bloaters. I'll try and go back up on this. Curse my rather dodgy keyboard. Oh, I'm going to have to look at that. You know what, I'll reset it so I don't have to press up. The up arrow on my keyboard's playing up, so I apologise for that. But at least if I can go down to it, as long as I don't sail past it, I can launch the game. There we go. Now this game isn't formatted yet in the .nex format like some of the other games I've been showcasing. It's still in the snapshot format, but you know, that's absolutely fine. It just means you've got all the extra kind of the files that go with it, the binary files and things like that. Not as neat just yet, but I'm sure it will be when it's finally released. Hopefully the creators will go down that route, because single file management is a lot simpler than messing about with things like this. So we'll launch it up anyway, and you can see the game doesn't have any kind of fancy loading screen or nothing yet, but that little stop the tape message there, I quite like that touch. That was something that was done on Nextoid as well, and it kind of a bit of a nod back to the days of tape loading, which was quite cool. And you'll see there on the screen, demo developed by Lampros and Phoebos. So yeah, I don't know if there are 50 stages you might have seen there, but it might take a while to kind of go through those if there is. The game is set up for both keyboard and Kempston joystick. I'm pleased to say, I know there's a lot of advocates out there for playing on a keyboard. It's still not for me, and if I'm ever going to be offered an option, it's always going to be on a joystick. And one thing I do want to mention, you can redefine your keys, which is quite handy, so you're not locked to a kind of standard key layout that's uncomfortable for you. And not only does it allow you to remap the keys, but one of the great things, obviously, about about the Spectrum Next being a modern system is, unlike the original Spectrum, you've got an easy way of saving. So you don't need any kind of battery backup. You don't need to save anything to tape. If you redefine the keys on this, it will hold it, and it will hold that key mapping for the next time you start the system. So you don't have to set it every time, which is quite a nice touch. It's these little things, you know, that some of the old Spectrum developers might need to kind of become accustomed to because they've now got access to it. But it's basic things that obviously have developed over time with more modern systems that we kind of take for granted, but we didn't have it back in the day. And it's nice that it's there now. It creates a better user-friendly experience. I'm just going to adjust the camera slightly there. Try and get all the screen. Right, so I'm going to select joystick purely because I'm a bigger fan of using a joystick. And show you what's what. I think it was 2 for joystick. And S to start, and off we go. There we go, Old John's, there you go. As you can see in the bottom corner there. So this character is called Old John. He's a little dude who's somewhere, some kind of cross between Bomberman and Mr. Ben with that little bowler hat he's got on. And you can instantly recognise the screen layout. You know, it's Bomberman. If you've never played Eric and the Bloaters before, then you'll instantly see what this is about just by looking at it. You can see the enemies there dancing around in the background. You've got the fixed blocks that fix you to the grid, and then you've got the destructible blocks which you blow up. You use the joystick to move up, down, left, right, and then you press the fire button to lay a bomb. Now, I haven't played this game too much just yet. However, it's quite an easy game to be able to talk and play because it's quite simplistic gameplay, so I can go over the finer points as I go along. But I have had a few goes, and I am finding it quite enjoyable. There's a few little touches I want to talk about in a minute, but I'll do that as I go along. So I've been bobbing away there, and you can see that I've revealed the exit. If I touch that, it will take me to the next level. Unlike Bomberman, you don't have to destroy all the enemies on screen before you can go through the exit. You can just progress just by touching the exit. Where it does differ though is in the fine touches. I can't speak too much about Eric and the Bloaters, but I can certainly talk a lot more about this. Ah, it just says time is up. I didn't realise there was a timer. Ah, so all the tiles are disappearing because my time's up. And I'm guessing it will reveal power-ups and make the enemies speed up. Ah, that's a nice little mechanic there. That hadn't happened to me until now because I've just been playing away. But yeah, those are the Bloaters, and you could see how it got angry there. And when it gets angry, it matches your speed, so you really have to run away from it. Obviously, you use your bombs to blow them up. However, something you have to get used to is the enemy patterns are a lot more random and unpredictable on this, so you have to be on your toes to avoid them. However, in the early stages, there are only a few enemies to talk of, so not as much to avoid. So I got killed there because I wasn't paying attention. I was reading the comments. Hi Bill, how's it going? So, destroy the pods there. Nice little touch you might have seen is as you plant the bomb, on Bomberman you never really got a cue that the bomb was about to explode. Much like Baggers in Space with the dynamite, you can actually see the fuse goes down and the bomb swells before it explodes, so at least you know not to go near the bomb when that's happening. One other thing you have to be careful of is the enemies can actually pass through your bombs on this, so you can't just trap them up a corner. So I've planned that there, it can go right through it if it wants to, so it can be slightly harder to hit them. There we go, we destroyed it to go on. It's looking alright in its day, so I'm a big fan of it. How's it going, Chris? You alright, mate? Nice to see you on one of the streams. Let's readjust my camera again there. Sorry, I tapped my phone. Knocked it all off. You'll see there's a little extra little stage mechanic being added to this level. Much like Pac-Man, there is an escape route. So you can actually sack off to one side of the screen and appear on the other if you find yourself in trouble. If you do lay a bomb on the exit, it will make other enemies appear. You have indeed, Zeb. You've actually got in on a live one. How's it going, Tim? How's it going, Kev? A lot of you joining this stream. Glad to see you all here. I'm sorry you all missed my early videos, but not many people were aware I was doing so much next content. Hopefully you'll be able to catch this and my other streams. So yeah, at the moment the actual levels look fairly basic, and they all look a bit samey. That's because the game is ready for release very soon, and as many of you know, the last thing to be done on games tends to be the graphics. It's all about working out the mechanics, you know, and the physics and everything first. So each level will have a different theme, and much like Bomberman, as you progress through, the stage blocks, the tiles and the backgrounds will all change slightly as you move through. But there's already some cool little effects. You'll notice in the holes, little eyes appear every so often, which is quite a cool little touch. There are power-ups there, but I've not found any as of yet. There are things like speed shoes, which allow you to speed up. There are additional bombs, so you can lay more than one bomb at once. Ones that increase your range, just like you would have had on Bomberman. I am going to try and progress a couple of levels out, so I don't look like a complete amateur. Got that one. One thing you do have to be careful of on this is it's not pixel specific. So if you're not careful, when you lay a bomb, if you walk in just in the range of that explosion, even when it's fading, you will get killed, and that applies even if you're walking from the side. It does kind of play a little bit on your sense of spatial awareness, but how's it going, Benny? You alright, mate? Nice to see you on here. So we'll go back through now and I'll talk about some of the finer points. Come on, C, work. I really need to sort out my keyboard. So let's jump in again. So you've got a nice little walking animation on old John. His eyes blink as he walks along, which is quite cool. Got a nice subtle sound effect. Sound effects are basic, but they totally work. I'm told that there is music being added in at some point, so you're going to get stage music, which will set it off nicely. I think the enemy colours and everything will change as well. Not too bad, thanks, Benny. There will be more power-ups added, I imagine, and I think some of the things will be refined. One thing I have noticed, and this isn't a criticism thing, I'm really pleased that I've been given an advanced copy of this, and I'm not going to tear it apart because it is a great game. There's a few little things that might just need to be kind of touched up. One thing I've noticed, when you're playing on a keyboard, it's very easy to navigate the maze because you're not often pressing more than one key at once. So when you said it was optimised for keyboard use, Phoebos, Lampros, I think I know what you mean. However, when you're playing on a joystick, what can actually happen is because you inevitably hit diagonals, sometimes you can kind of get stuck. As you can see there, I'm holding down right as I went around that corner, and you kind of get stuck on the corner. It doesn't tend to happen through the gameplay as I've found it, but when I was just testing the extremities of the control, that was something I noticed. So you might want to just try and address that in your coding just before it goes to release. The other thing I wanted to mention was about the possibility of walking onto flames, even when it seems like you should be able to walk there. You'll see what I mean now. That's fading, but if I touch even near that tile, I die. So the collision detection can be a little bit disorientating at times. Yeah, you did say that, Lampros. I do remember you saying, and that's why I've just mentioned it to everybody. But it does control really well, and because I'm used to playing Bomberman on 8-way arcade joysticks and 8-way D-pads, I already kind of know and have adjusted my play style so that when I'm playing, I make a point of stopping and avoiding going over the diagonal so that doesn't happen anyway. Try and catch this guy. It's the one place you can kind of catch him off guard. Gotcha. I haven't come across many power-ups on this, Lampros, although I did see them on some of your demo videos. Do they only appear later on? Whoa! It's a cool little game. I am a big fan of Bomberman. I mean, I was a big fan of Bomberman back in the day. And I know this is a budget title, and I'm not trying to kind of get ahead of myself, but I mean, people watching this are probably thinking the same thing I am. It would be really cool. You don't need to get the Bomberman IP, but it would be really cool if there was some way of implementing multiplayer in this. A new perk every 2 stages. There we go. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, on the 4th stage, every 4th stage, the bombs automatically set. So I'm going to try and reach stage 4 and show that. Yeah, it's not straight up, Ben. It's got its own character. And I think that's a good thing, you know. You don't want a straight up clone. But yeah, I think there'd be if there's any kind of possibility of adding, whether it be a cooperative multiplayer or a kind of a deathmatch multiplayer for at least 2 players, I think that would be really, really cool. Whether you could do it as a patch or maybe a sequel to it. I mean, I think that would be really cool. You know, a deathmatch Angry Bloaters, I think would be really, really cool. But as a game in itself, yeah, I'm really liking it. It feels a lot smoother than any kind of Bomberman clone I used to play on the Spectrum or the old computers. There were a few. I can't name any off the top of my head, but it definitely feels a lot smoother than any of those. It is a lot more like the console Bomberman games, and that's a good thing, you know. Tricky. Just take a bit longer to build your character up, obviously, because the power-ups aren't as abundant. But let's jump on to level 4. Oh no, sorry. So it's still stage 3. It's just the next part of stage 3. See, I'm not actually getting snagged on those corners like I just described through general gameplay. I just noticed that when it gets a bit hectic, and you say you're being chased by one of the bloaters when they're orange state, you can kind of get stuck a bit like that. So hopefully you'll be able to sort that out in the code. Yeah, oh, level editor, Benny. That's actually a really good idea. Some kind of level editor maybe, as some kind of future upgrade or something. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here. I mean, you got to remember, guys, that it's easy to get carried away when you start playing new games for a new system like this. And especially once you've seen what's come in the years between when the original game of this was made and now, it's easy to start thinking about all the features you could have. But Lampros has said that this is intended to be a budget game, and you know what? It's a fun little game. It's the kind of game I'd be quite happy throwing a £5 down on. You know what I mean? It's a digital download, and you know, with a lot of the next games. Obviously, the first few next games have come in at like $12.99. A few will be re-released at $10.99. I could say a budget release at £5 is about reasonable for a game like this, and I'd happily pay that for a digital download on a whim. You know what I mean? I do it all the time. There's the power-ups. That's what we like to see. So I finally got a 2-square explosion. That should help a lot. Off we go. So yeah, one other thing I did want to mention in terms of the functionality is the screen shake effect when it explodes. It's very cool, don't get me wrong. However, the shake is quite extreme, and if you're trying to evade an enemy, like now for example, if that was to chase me now, trying to evade an enemy while the screen's shaking that violently, if I'm trying to go around corners quick, can kind of be a little bit like baffling to your eyes. And I'm just thinking maybe Lampros, you could reduce the shake a little bit. I just think it'd be slightly easier on the eyes. It's a cool effect, but if you could dial it back a little bit, I think that would be really cool. Yeah, there you go. Zeb just mentioned the wobble there. So, oh, here we go. Auto bombs. Got to be really careful here. That adds a new gameplay challenge. You never had stages like this on Bomberman. Yes, there was poisons which could make you lay auto bombs, but not levels where it defaults you to laying auto bombs and no way to shake it. Ah! Yeah, that shaking, as Zeb's just said, it's a little bit extreme. If it was a little bit, it's a great effect, but I think you could just make a little, maybe shake a little bit less. I think that would be quite cool. Yeah, I think that'd be a nice touch to do because it's quite extreme. See if my C key is working now. Ah. I think I need to check the membrane on this to make sure it's all plugged in properly. But yeah, cool little game. I mean, there's so many nice little touches. It's nice to see again on what is essentially a very basic game, but you know, it's showing off the little features, the little animation there of just the title coming up on the screen. You know, you've got the sprites obviously in the foreground, floating in front of the text, going around the sides here. It's the kind of stuff you would have seen on arcade game or track screens, you know, and that's the kind of thing we really want to see on the next. So yeah, moving forward, I mean, I think that's a brilliant attempt at a Bomberman inspired game, you know. Considering that was done in 1 week by one man pretty much, I think we can all agree that that is a really cool game, you know, and I think it's got a lot of potential. Once it's all dressed up, you know, with the slightly different stage designs, you know, changing up the colour of the enemies, you know, adding in a little bit of music and that, I think that'll be a really cool game you could persevere with, you know, and take it to as many stages as you needed to, you know. I know I never played the original Eric and the Bloaters, but I'm a big fan of this, and I mean, this could very well be the Bomberman series for the next, you know. There's a lot of ideas we've kind of bandied about there. And, yeah, I mean, we've looked at some premium titles so far. You know, we've looked at Dungeonette and, Delta Star. We've looked at Baggers in Space. We've looked at Warhawk. You know, this is very much on the simple end of the spectrum. Excuse the pun. But it's certainly the type of game you're going to want to see. It's using all the features of the next, you know, and I think they should be congratulated for still being able to knock out a game that looks this good in such a short space of time. It shows that Spectrum feel is still there. You know, I've talked about this a lot, and it's not just me being starry-eyed. It's the fact that, you know, they're still going with the same kind of ethics as the coders of old did, you know. Things were written in bedrooms in a few weeks and refined in a month, you know. He wrote this in a week, you know. The graphics have been thrown on by Phoebos afterwards, and it's already a well-compiled, it's a complete game, you know. And the few little refinements aside, which obviously Lampros has discussed on here, and a few suggestions that people have made, it's very, you know, it's very clever, and I'm liking it. Time split in two. See, Benny's throwing up ideas now. There's all kinds of things the way it could be expanded, whether you do it for this or whether you, like I say, I'm sure there's potential here to patch games and add in extra features and stuff. So I'm not going to say the Dirty World DLC because I hate that term and I hate what DLC represents, but certainly some kind of expansion packs, you know, I think could be possible for games like this, or easily made sequels, you know. You could charge £3 for this and do a sequel with a few extra features for another £3 in a couple of months' time, and I think that'd be really cool. So a lot to think about anyway there, Lampros. I had a lot of viewers on this and a lot of people watching at once. So, read the comments. Thank you all for tuning in for this. It's not going to be as long a video as the other ones I'm doing, but the good news is there's a premium title coming from Lampros as well, which has now sent me a demo version of, and over the weekend I'm going to have a bit of a play with it. I think it's a bit more in depth, so there's going to be a lot more to talk about. So I'm going to go into some detail in playing that and look at the finer points and maybe do a little bit of bug testing while I'm there. And hopefully I'll be back in a couple of days to discuss Lampros's first premium title for the system, and let you all know what I think of that, and you can give your thoughts on it as well. So yeah, Angry Bloaters for the Spectrum next. The first bona fide, I would say, to be released budget title. No problem, Benny. And thank you all for tuning in, and stay tuned to my page. I'm going to have a lot more next content coming, and I've also got some cool videos coming up on some rare systems and stuff that I've got. So I'll speak to you all soon. Have a good Friday night, and have a good weekend.